I'm Professor Phil Greening, and I'm a professor at Heriot-Watt University in the Logistics Research Centre. And we work with a lot of the leading companies and retailers trying to find ways of improving the logistics and the organisation of logistics. So the reason I've become involved with IMIO is because increasingly in our research we're finding data is a very important aspect of change. And the world is changing, and the world of logistics in particular is changing, and is having to respond to the Internet of Things, to the environmental pressures, and it is also a big source of data. So I've always been involved in warehousing before I became an academic, and as part of being an academic. But IMIO and the warehouse management systems and the conveyor control systems is reliant on data. And that's my interest in the business, how we can drive value from data and capture that value. We will have access to much more data than we used to. That's the first thing to recognise. And that data will hide relationships between things that are yet to be discovered. So one of the major advances is big data, and people don't really understand what big data is. But big data is large amounts of data, so large volumes, delivered at speed and with variety. Big data analytics is about tapping in to try and use the new computer power to establish relationships between variables that we didn't know before. And that's the big change. Once we find those new relationships, we can start tapping into the value they create. Well, we've always used data. You know, let's be clear about that. Everything in logistics has been planned, and planning can only happen if we've got data. So data per se is not new. What is new is the amount of data that we're generating. So as we move into a world that's described by the Internet of Things, where all things are connected to all other things, and all things are generating small amounts of data, we have much more data to work with. And the old way of doing data analytics doesn't work anymore. So we've established a new way of doing that. And that's why it's becoming a hot topic, is because we have a new way of tapping into much more data to establish new relationships and driving out of that much more value. Well, that's not really known, okay, other than I think it will be transformative, okay? So not just within warehousing, but across the world of logistics, we're looking at radical change driven by 3 or 4 big factors. The first factor is the availability of data and the connectivity of things, so the Internet of Things. The second thing is the environmental pressures. So the need to reduce the carbon footprint of logistics starts to become paramount. And if you combine those things together, then it's a context where radical change will happen. It has to happen because the old way of doing things won't deliver the environmental benefits that we need in the future. And the old way of doing things didn't have access to the same levels of data and connectivity that we had before. The third thing that you can overlay on that is what people call artificial intelligence or machine learning, and that hasn't previously been deployed in logistics. So you deploy artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, machine learning, and you put that in a context of an environmental imperative where we have to make dramatic reductions in the carbon footprint of logistics, it will be radically different to what it was before. And that's pretty much all we know. Okay? But that radical change will happen as a consequence of data. It couldn't happen any other way. Without that data, we would be constrained to doing things the old way.